A reading from the book of Leviticus. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "If someone has on his skin a scab or a pustule or blotch, which appears to be the sore of leprosy, he shall be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of the priests among his descendants. If the man is leprous and unclean, the priest shall declare him unclean by reason of the sore on his head. The one who bears the sore of leprosy shall keep his garments rent and his head bare. He shall muffle his beard, he shall cry out, 'Unclean, unclean.' As long as the sore is on him, he shall declare himself unclean, since he is in fact unclean. He shall dwell apart, making his abode outside the camp." The word of the Lord. In the very first reading from Leviticus, we are given a protocol to follow in the case of leprosy. These kinds of protocols and precautions that we take should be very familiar to us to this day. Before the pandemic, the scriptures had covered leprosy and how people responded to it. It seems very strange to publicly declare someone unclean and then drive them away from the people, forcing them to live outside of a camp or a community. All of this should sound very, very familiar. We are no stranger to separating people and publicly declaring how many cases of COVID-19 have appeared in our communities. Ancient Israel took the very same precautions about disease that we do now. When we get a positive case, we essentially declare that person unclean, and we separate them from the rest of the community through a quarantine. And so instead of sending them outside of a camp, we lock them away in their homes, and we call this quarantine. Instead of publicly calling people unclean, we have this term social distancing. The ancient Israelites did something very similar to what we are doing now. Society also has adapted this model of declaring people unclean. We also might know this as cancel culture. We have a very bad habit in which we label people unclean simply because of a person or a group of people hold certain opinions or differing viewpoints that disagree with our own. This is true of both sides. People can no longer disagree with others out of fear for being declared unclean or for holding different opinions. When I was in college, I was blessed to have a very good friend who was not a Christian. In fact, he was an atheist. He disagreed with me on many things, especially on the nature of creation, humanity, and especially the existence of God. But despite our disagreements and our frequent arguments, he didn't see me as less of a person than he was, and I didn't view him as being less of a person than myself. We respected each other, and we respected the beliefs that we held. We still went to the beach, we still talked stories, we still ate together, and we still laughed together. Although we disagreed and we held different opinions, we still remained friends. Jesus was not afraid to touch and heal those in society that were unclean from skin disease. Nor did Jesus see the sick as being less of a human being than they really are. Through the eyes of God, he only sees a beloved son or daughter created in his own image and likeness, namely the ability to be loved and to return that love. He sees a relationship that was once broken, but now is being repaired by God's grace. A person's political views, like even liturgical preferences, faults, quirks, or sins do not define a person. Instead, we recall the words of Saint Benedict, in which we should receive all as Christ, just as Christ receives all of us with mercy, compassion, and love.